Look, what you're about to witness is going to seem weird.
Welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of the Rehearsal Season 2, Episode 3, Pilot's Code. Patrick Klepek, we're not doing full-blown detailed recaps for each of these episodes, but when we decided to start covering it, I said, hey, I think we should cover this. And in my head, I was thinking, it's because at some point something batshit insane is going to happen on this show, and I will want a venue to react to it with you. And that day has come, Patrick Klepek, because Season 2, Episode 3, Pilot's Code is one of the most ridiculous, outlandish things I have ever watched. I posted on Blue Sky that every week I think the rehearsal can't do something more fucked up than what I'm watching in that moment. And then every following week, I'm proven wrong. And Mike, the Wrath of God, responded by saying, this may be the greatest show in TV history, and Fielder should win every award, but he probably should also be thrown in prison for it. And I have to say, I agree with that assessment. I mean, I was screaming at the television. This is one of the most upsetting, genius things I've ever seen. And what I really admire about this show in general, and this episode in particular, is you really understand the will that is necessary to do something of this scale, right? Like, to even attempt what is being attempted in this episode it requires almost a will that is beyond human comprehension. Patrick Klepek, before we talk about what actually happened, what did you think of the episode?
So I'm not allowed to scream at my television when I watch these episodes.
That's too bad.
I watched the rehearsal after watching The Last of Us, and my wife watches The Last of Us with me. Not a chance she would get anything out of the rehearsal. I could tell that would not be her vibe. And also she needs more sleep than me. So it's just me on the couch. Frequently at that point, I will connect my AirPods to my Apple TV so that the house can be silent while everyone's sleeping. I don't wake anyone up. So instead, when I am witnessing Fielder mutter, "Oh fuck," as he almost chokes on breast milk coming out of a giant puppet, I am forced to just sit with that, Dave. To just sit with it and internally process that and think to myself, how did he get here? But more importantly, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. Blessed to be the person who have lived long enough to watch this occur on the screen. I have to admit, I don't think I'm fully on the rehearsal's wavelength, but I am with you that even if you aren't, it is the audacity of it is worth witnessing. It is worth every time a new frame occurs, you go, huh? Why? Okay. And it may not have you in stitches, but the sheer audacity of Fielder's work is awe-inspiring. And I think it makes the rehearsal, regardless, I find it impossible to engage emotionally with it. That's just, we've talked about that. I'm just not on that wavelength with the show, but the sheer scale of the bit is just impossible to not have respect for. I don't understand what HBO is doing, but I appreciate it, and I hope they keep doing it.
Unlike Patrick, I am fully on this show's wavelength. I think this is some of Nathan Fielder's best work, but I understand. I do not begrudge anyone who does not feel the same way. I mean, this is just, it's an acquired taste, let's put it that way. This episode revolves around two somewhat related plot lines, question mark?
Feel like the most episodic of, I'm sure it'll all loop back around, but I did have a sense of were these cut subplots that were just these bits are too good. We don't know where I don't know where this is going, but regardless, I'm glad they exist.
Well, it is all part of his effort to figure out how to train pilots so that they feel comfortable bringing.
I'm sorry.
Which by the way, is an actual problem. It's not I don't think he's just making that up. But in the first plotline, Nathan meets a couple, Monique and Bogdan, who have a dog named Achilles that they decided to clone 3 separate times. However, when Monique and Bogdan, along with many other clone pet owners, realize that the clones don't have the same personality as the original dog, Nathan resolves to replicate the details of Achilles' upbringing via an elaborate play in order to see if the clones can develop the same personality as Achilles. Realizing some success with this approach, Nathan then realizes if he can live the life of Sully Sullenberger, one of the most well-known pilots of all time, who is well regarded for uh, an act of safety in regard to one of his flights, that Fielder may be able to gain some insight into the central problem of the show. So he manufactures an elaborate recreation of Sully's life, culminating in a simulation of U.S. Airways Flight 1549, in which Sully successfully landed his plane in the Hudson River. So that's what happens in this episode. And there's a few things I want to point out. Okay, first of all, I think the tension of the entire show is, can you replicate that which is irreplicable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he is so obsessed with, I want to get myself or someone else in the mindset of somebody who experiences what this person either experienced in the past or what they will experience in the future. Like, can like through like obsessive means of recreating the entire bar or recreating the entire airport, can I recreate that mindset and thought process? And it's fundamentally an impossible task, but he is trying to do it every week, and there's something really admirable is not the right word, but there's something really I don't know. Yeah, audacious probably is the right word. You know,
Yeah,
there's something
yeah.
really like I can't believe he's attempting that which is impossible. Like it's like watching a magician, you know, um, do something like undo cuffs while they're underwater or something. It's like, wow, that seems really tough. Um, and no one should attempt to do it because in a way you're kind of playing God by doing it, but he's trying to do it. Um, so that's one thing that comes to mind. And by the way, have you seen the movie Synecdoche, the Charlie Kaufman film?
No, but I've
Patrick
heard
Klepek?
it. It's on my list of shame, but I've heard after this episode dropped, it was the most commonly associated like sort of work with
Yeah,
this one.
I got vibes of Synecdoche from the first season as well, but like this season really ratchets up the comparison because in this episode there's a scene where he like lays out like, here are the different phases of Sully's life on the he buys like a dozen copies of Sully's autobiography, and he's like laying out like, this is the childhood phase and this is the blah phase. And there's a very similar shot in Synecdoche, New York, where the playwright Caden Catard is writing out all these. He's writing basically backstories for all these different people that are going to be in this play. Like Synecdoche is essentially about the same. It's a very similar concept to what is being attempted by Nathan Fielder, where this guy is trying to create a scale model of New York City um, inside this gigantic warehouse, and like he's trying to make this play as real as possible. And so he's like, oh, we need to have like the apartment building look the same, and it needs to be the same size, and therefore we need this huge airplane hangar where we can put all these buildings inside. You know, like, and it just expands outward from there, and it's kind of very similar to like what Fielder's trying to do, which is trying to replicate the impossible. But anyway, there's a shot that's very similar where like
Mm.
he's writing all these notes on a wooden table, and it's very similar to like Nathan Fielder like laying out all these notes of Sully's life on this wooden table. Um, and I actually think Synecdoche is like a very brilliant film, and it's one of those movies that stays with me. So would strongly recommend it if you have a chance to check it out, and you will get a lot of rehearsal vibes from it. But the Achilles dog thing is like whatever, you know, that's very like normal Nathan Fielder of he's trying to like replicate this dog's upbringing, and there is kind of this wonderful moment when the dog actually does do a thing that the old dog did. That's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
cool moment. But it's like kind of like standard Fielder. There's nothing like really remarkable about it. But then he goes on this huge tangent about Sully Sullenberger's life, and I have to say it is one of the most fucked up things I've ever watched ever. Like
Can you
it's
imagine being Sully?
well, this is one of the things I wanted to say, which is like we found out last week. I'm reading from Variety that essentially like Nathan Fielder put Paramount on blast last week. Paramount, by the way, who funded his show The Curse, a very anti-commercial show. But they decided to take a chance on it, and then he like put them on blast in a huge way and compared them to the Third Reich. And according to Variety, like insiders at Paramount said they were not prepared for what happened. Like no one in Fielder's camp gave Paramount a call and say, "Heads up, like you're going to be compared to the Nazis in this episode." Like just
More
FYI.
shocking that HBO didn't. You know what I mean? Like I can imagine Fielder being like, the best way this trick works, if you're experiencing it in real time, is that everyone is surprised by it. I'm like a little more surprised that nothing came out that was like, by the way, like Casey Bloys like slid into someone's DMs. It was just like, by the way, like this good, like, you know what I mean? Like seems like everyone played.
I'm convinced
along.
that no one at HBO watches the show because if they did, they would not allow it to air. So that might explain why no one gave them the heads up. But anyway, he did not give Paramount the heads up. So I have to imagine, Patrick, that this was the first time that Sully Sullenberger was watching this. Like was finding out about this was by watching the show. Like I am really excited to hear when Sully Sullenberger gives an interview next and he explains, hey, yeah, I didn't know that he did this extremely fucked up thing until I was watching it on TV. Like, I don't think Sully watches this regularly, is my guess. And so you can imagine, you can imagine someone like giving him the call and saying like, hey, like you're featured in this show on HBO. He's like, oh, cool. HBO, very prestigious. Like, yeah, but like not in the way you think. You know, like it's not the way you might like. You know, yeah.
One thing that I found very remarkable about, and this, I think this is true of a lot of, I think the stuff that resonates the most, like the stuff about the rehearsal where I can't quite pierce the veil on who Nathan Fielder is, and when like he talks about himself, whatever himself means, and his emotional state, none of that stuff works for me. But one way to like describe what a lot of Fielder's work is like in his deconstruction of Sully's biography is like he's a really good reporter. Like he's like it's all like there's absurdist lens applied to so much of it and the lengths of the bits, but like his examination of like even just the basics of identifying a potential flaw in the relationships between pilots and co-pilots and breaking down passages in Sully's book, like is just like good critical analysis and reporting. Like he is like, he's incredibly good at that. And he, of course, like on purpose, like chooses some of like the most ridiculous framing or presumptions about what the facts could mean, including like, I mean, I don't know that I'll find a more brilliant bit this year, which is concluding that Sully was listening to the chorus from the Evanescence song when he's deciding what to do and whether to land in the Hudson. Like, but you only arrive at that being as funny as it is because he does like the work of making it seem believable by analyzing, like, and you can only do that.
Insightful. Too.
It is like that's so like the rehearsal works best for me when it's Nathan Fielder applying his absurdity to like other people, and where it doesn't work for me as well is when like I'm supposed to believe that you're having a revelation as quote Nathan Fielder, and so the Sully stuff works for me. It's like a perfect melding. It's like really beautiful and interesting insight into. There's a headline I saw that was something along the lines of like Nathan Fielder does a better biopic of Sully Sullenberg than the Tom Hanks movie Sully, and I think that's probably true. I think you probably glean more about.
Yeah, have you seen Sully?
No, I heard it was like a pretty deep, like as far as those movies go.
It is a well-made movie that is also incredibly boring. Like there no insights detected in that movie at all. Whereas watching this episode, you get way more insights into like how Sully became the way he was and what his state of mind was potentially in that moment. And also, you know, sorry to interrupt, Patrick, but like this idea of airline pilots not feeling like they can confess to having mental issues is a real thing in our actual universe, where like many airline pilots conceal psychological problems because they worry it could disqualify them from employment.
And that's what I mean. Like that's where like his absurdist like commitment to the bit like ends up in like it's pretty interesting observations about issues with like how these people communicate. And he only arrives at it. Yes, he arrives at it through an absurdist lens, but like you only can do that if you're really smart and like have like interesting critical analysis, which he does. Like it's the only reason it's why his work works is because he's just a really smart, observant guy.
Yeah. But I think even Nathan Fielder felt the need to warn us that this was going to be something really weird. When you see him put on the bald cap and like shave his whole body, and he's like, in order to like experience, it's like that Face Off trailer with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. He's like, in order to understand him, I must become him, and it's like, so when he appears as a baby in this gigantic crib, it's just like I'm losing my mind. What, I can't believe he did this. And then this thing with like where he's drinking the breast milk. Nathan Fielder, the actual human, looks genuinely uncomfortable and in distress during that scene. And I'm like, is anyone on set gonna help? Like, what is the instruction to the people on set? Like,
does
no
Fielder
matter
have
how,
a safe word?
yeah. How, no matter how uncomfortable I am, like you cannot. And then of course there's like the scene later on in the episode where he is with um this woman that Sully kind of had a thing for when he was young, and then he says, "Okay, everyone needs to leave the set, so and just like point the cameras and leave them running, so that I can like masturbate without getting
Oh
sued."
my god! Do
And
you think he did it?
can you imagine? Well, whether or not he did, can you imagine the conversation with the actor where he needs to say to her, "Hey, like this is the part where you leave," and whether he told her the truth in that moment or not, it's like you have to leave so I can like masturbate because I'm like very aroused in this situation theoretically. It's just like anyway. But this is the kind of audacity you're talking. This is the kind of will it takes, is like a complete disregard for all societal norms. Is what it takes to do this kind of work. And there is something really transgressive and upsetting, but also possibly genius about not specifically that scene, which but just like the whole enterprise. Um, yeah, I there is this really interesting effect where I'm watching the show, Patrick, and I know you're not like engaging with it on the same level as I am, but I'm watching the show and like you see somebody recreate all these scenes from this guy's life, and many of them are meant to be ridiculous and absurd and humorous. Like his parents are on like these massive stilts. His sister is wearing this ridiculous looking mask. Like all these things where like it's supposed to be funny, but when you see somebody like recreate this entire person's life, there is something really profound and poignant about. Like I find myself getting like emotionally connected to the actual story, even though it's all ridiculous. Like even though it doesn't make any sense. I don't know if any of it works. Where like I'm like the scene, for instance, where like uh I think it's Sully's mom refuses to do a memorial for his dad, right? Like, and again, very silly because you have all those photos there with the gigantic dad on stilts and everything, and it's very silly, and you're supposed to laugh at this, but also like I'm like, that is sad, and I do find myself like connecting with this character and grieving with him, and I think just the audacity of the recreation, like it's so audacious, it requires so much effort that just the effort alone makes me connect with it. Anyway,
Well, I think I know that you are correct me if I'm wrong and repeating this, that generally not a fan of biopics, right? Like just like because mostly biopics about famous people in history or musicians, they tend to be factually true but emotionally either stunted or wrong,
inert.
And I think part of what you're getting at here is that in the absurdity, like it manages to find an emotional truth about Sully that is completely lacking from the factual truth of like the events that occurred in the movie Sully, in which you learn nothing about this person and who they are. And yet you probably do more in this, 35 minutes of television.
I guess I think what I'm saying is like, if somebody tried to recreate like all the details of my life in detail. Like even just that act, there's something inherent about that act that is caring in some, or
Mm-hmm.
that there is some like commitment in some way that I feel like is I don't know. It generates a favorable connection for me. I don't know. And you're right. I generally don't like musical biopics because I think they're very formulaic. In fact, there was an entire movie made about how formulaic they are called Walk Hard. Very good.
Mm-hmm. Great movie.
Um, but biopics in general, I think, have more range to them. But like musical biopics specifically, 95% of them follow the same storyline. So that's what I don't like. But anyway, okay. Any other thoughts about this episode? I mean, I think you've already pointed out the whole the whole iPod thing was really hilarious. I thought as well. Like he goes to the whole time, I'm thinking to myself, there's all these like things that must have taken like hours and hours and hours to achieve for the show
Mm-hmm.
that literally you see on screen for like sometimes less than 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, in this episode, they're walking the dog around and they're like capturing air from Palo Alto, right, or San Jose, and then trucking it hundreds of miles to Los Angeles, and then like piping the air into the dog. I mean, it's supposed to be ridiculous and stupid, I think. But there is that scene where there's those two actors who are like, "Oh, I missed Steve Jobs' funeral," because my IPO happened last night at midnight, and then they walk by a Jared from Subway
Mm-hmm.
advertisement, which I'm just like, you see the advertisement for maybe like 3 seconds, but somebody like spent time to like find a Subway advertisement, like put it up on that bus. That it's just like there's so much like effort that goes into this that we can barely even comprehend. He has these people acting in shifts. I'm curious, like, is it literally like 8 hours each? All day long for like continuously, and if so, that's ridiculous. Like I have quite a lot of questions about like how he's actually accomplishing this. But anyway, um, I just wanted to shout out the attention to detail, including the fact that they got like original like OG iPod boxes that
Yeah.
seem to be like factory sealed, and he's using like an actual iPod and seems to be syncing it with a era like a computer from that time period. I love the attention to detail on the show. Um, Patrick Klepek, do you think that Sully Sullenberger was listening to Evanescence while he was landing the plane in the Hudson? Do you think that was the
I choose to
decisive?
believe. I
Yeah,
choose to believe. I choose. I refuse to investigate the matter any further. And I'm gonna leave my heart where I want it to be, which
right.
is that he was listening to that chorus.
The world is a better place if
It
that was
is.
the case.
It
Yeah,
is.
indeed, indeed. All right. Anyway, masterpiece episode of The Rehearsal. One of the most ridiculous things I've ever watched, and I am so on board with the show. Screaming at the TV screen. I'm like, what is even going on?
Where is it going? By this point in the first season, we were making that pivot to Fielder inserting himself into the
Right, right.
family dynamic. You kind of got a sense, oh, this is, you may not know where the show is going, but like, a structure has come into place.
Yeah.
That none of that is present here. So maybe that's still coming. But I couldn't tell you where we're going to end up.
Couple of other topics, actually, Patrick, before we close off today. One of them is, I've talked about how like I, as a viewer, connected with Sully's story through Nathan's ridiculous reenactments,
Mm-hmm.
but I also felt like Sully was somehow violated by this whole episode. Like he probably wouldn't appreciate literally any of this. Like, can you
Nope.
imagine if Nathan Fielder did this to your life without talking to you first? We don't know if he actually got permission or not, but like, I I have
Seems
reason.
unlikely.
Seems
Like if you had to bet, would you bet that he got
no.
permission?
If I had money to bet, I would say he did not get permission. Right. But did you were you at all troubled by like the ethics question mark of this situation, like, and putting Sully's whole life out for our on display for
Yeah.
again, Sully did write the book, so it's not like
Yeah, but it feels invasive. I think you're supposed to feel like Fielder wants you to feel like that. Part of that uncomfortable feeling is, I think, part of it's part of what makes the bit work, but also I would completely understand why someone could look at this and like kind of laugh and chuckle at it and go, "It's kind of fucked up. I'm not sure you should have done that, dude." But I think that is part of Fielder's when he is operating quote at his best. I think there are elements of his work that are very much like Kaufman-esque in that he is pushing. He is pushing on the edges of what is acceptable. And
right.
I think there are times where again, I found season 1 like ethically and morally reprehensible. It crossed a line for me. I couldn't engage. He crossed a line for me, and I think it's kind of his thing. Like, I think he wants to find that line with lots of different people. And it's I think that's a bit of how his work. He wants his work to feel like it feels a little bit dangerous, and you lose sight of that when people are on stilts. But when you frame it that way of like, well, how would this guy feel? It's like, yeah, it feels a little fucked up, like that he would do that to somebody, especially if you didn't give them a heads up.
Indeed. All right, there's one other piece of information I wanted to follow up with. Last week on the podcast, I was openly speculating, like, what are we watching of this that's real? And specifically, there's a pilot named Jeff who felt pretty ridiculous. I was like, is this guy actually a pilot? Because if so, he's a walking HR violation. Of course, I'm aware those people exist, but I wasn't sure that Fielder could get one of them to expose himself on the air like this. But that character, Jeff Walen, who makes a number of objectionable statements last episode and this episode, and again, seems like a reprehensible individual.
Mm-hmm.
He does appear in this episode as well. And he does seem to be like a real person.
Unfortunately.
I want to say thanks to Pat from decodingtv@gmail.com, who emailed into us and sent me details about this person's life. This guy has a Wikipedia entry. Jeff Walen, you can find him. He tried to launch a business called Bikini Barbershop in New Jersey, which is a barbershop and salon which consists of female hairstylists wearing only bikinis. And there was a reality show that ran on AXS TV during 2012. Are you familiar with AXS TV? I don't even remember this.
No.
AXS TV, an American cable television channel majority owned by Canadian broadcaster Anthem Sports and Entertainment. Anyway, Patrick Klepek, I have a clip from that show. Here it is.
Hi, I'm Jeff Walen, owner and founder of Bikini Barbers.
That gives you a taste of that show, which aired for, I believe, one season before being canceled. Also,
shocking.
Following Hurricane Sandy, a drop in business forced the closure of the shop, is what I have learned from Wikipedia. Oh. In addition, Jeff Walen is also working on a autobiography called Catch Flights, Not Feelings. And here is a description: from navigating the chaotic dating world to running Bikini Barbers and launching his aviation-themed wine, Mile High Wines, the memoir explores what it's like to live life in the fast lane, full of personal revelations, wild escapades, and business insights. It's a story about chasing experiences and fulfillment, all while trying to find balance in a world filled with distractions and temptations. End quote. It is a work in progress, but for those who want to get that book, it's available at catchflightsnotfeelings.com. Catchflightsnotfeelingsbook.com. So anyway, guy's been around for a while, seems to be legit. There's nothing in the show that makes me think he's a different person on the show than he is in real life.
No.
So just wanted to shout that out. A little bit of real life action for you on what's going on in the rehearsal.
Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.